That's the right question to ask, because oftentimes the polls are national and we want to look specifically on what is mobilizing voters where. I will share with you, we have never seen such enthusiasm by Latino voters for a Democratic candidate as we're seeing in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is actually in the pack at 77%. To give you an idea, in 2020, Biden, when you looked at generational divide among Latinos, he was at 70% and really didn't break that fever among young voters. So she's really pulling ahead. The place that we're finding that she is neck to neck right now in the Latino community is in Nevada. And I can share with you, Kaylee, we were in Nevada over the weekend with partners in SEIU. We were door knocking, we were listening to the voters. And what we keep hearing is that for them, housing is the number one issue. To really appreciate it, Kaylee, we were talking to one potential voter, and he said, look, I am 24 years old. I was, 3 years ago, I was paying $700 in rent, and now I'm paying over $1,200 in rent, and my wages have not come up. So any way that the campaign can talk more about the fact that on their platform, they are thinking of increasing 3 million individual low-income housings under her platform, that's important. Talking about $25,000 for first-time homebuyers, you're talking about as someone in a different socioeconomic gap. It's not the one, that's not the message for young people. And I will share with you, the biggest potential that both candidates have is like, how do you mobilize the young voter in the African-American community, young voter in the Latino community? Because it was the young voter in Arizona and in Nevada in 2022 that basically secured a Democratic Senate, because they were the last ones to vote. They were low propensity information voters. And so with less than 20 days out, now's the time to really for the candidates to talk to these voters specifically about the issues and try to break through that noise.
Maria, I want to go back to April for a little context on your poll. As Kaylee mentioned, you found 64% of respondents support Harris in the swing states, 31% Trump, 5% third party. In April, again, she had 64%. Joe Biden had 48%. Donald Trump right around where he is now. He had 33, and there was a 12% reading for RFK Jr. RFK is out of the race, but it takes more than his votes to get Kamala Harris to 64%. When you see an instant reaction like that by changing the top of the ticket, what is it about Kamala Harris that appeals to this community?
Joe, you're incredibly astute. It was the first time that we had seen Latino voters actually shifting from Donald Trump to Kamala Harris. And one of the things that we were able to find in our polling and our surveys was that these individuals, her story appealed to them. She is the first candidate that doesn't have to be explained what it means to have parents who have immigrant roots, to navigate America as a multicultural, bicultural woman. And that in itself resonated. She also doesn't have to speak about the virtues of abortion access. What most folks don't realize is that in the Latino community, while the average age of a white voter is 45 years old, the average age of a Latino voter is 31. These are individuals, specifically women, that are in their prime of their reproductive lives, and they want to make sure that they have access to abortion care. So once she got on top of the ticket, they believed her when she said that she wanted to codify Roe versus Wade. And in all our surveys that we find, the number one issue is housing. The second issue is abortion access. And so in a place where you have ballot initiatives in Nevada, in Arizona, even in Florida, that is going to be, I believe, a stealth weapon in mobilizing a lot of these folks that might be soft right now, but that recognize that at the end of the day, it's going to be about abortion access in their local state.
Well, Maria Teresa, Donald Trump has made attempts to tie some of these issues to the wider issue of immigration, suggesting, for example, that the flood of migrants that have come to the U.S. are crowding out hospitals, making it harder for people to access health care, that they're bringing up housing costs, although economically, of course, that has been disputed. And there's a massive question about what the economic impact of mass deportation of millions of people who have not come here through legal means would mean for the U.S. economy. What is the right way to approach the immigration question for Latino voters? What do you hear from them?
Kaylee?
Can you hear us, Maria? We can hear you if you can hear us.
I think we might have lost our connection.
All right. Well, it is something to consider. And we've had many conversations about this in recent weeks, Joe. The economics, potentially, of the kind of abortion policy that Donald Trump, or immigration mass deportation policy that Donald Trump is suggesting, what that would do to the workforce and labor supply in some of these exact states that we're talking about that do rely on undocumented labor to get a lot of work done.
Yeah, I think Maria is back with us, speaking from Voto Latino, where she's president and CEO. Maria, if you can hear us, I wonder your thoughts on these economic impacts that Kaylee's talking about.
Well, I think, Kaylee, most folks, when they hear mass deportation, oftentimes they don't realize that policy itself would just ravage local communities. When you see the contributions of immigrants, whether they are undocumented or here with papers, they are a massive contributors to our Social Security. They're massive contributors to our Treasury coffers at the state and local and national level. So that is kind of like a non-starter, and it should be a non-starter for every single American. My concern around this mass deportation, though, is that even if it's not done in an official act, there will be plenty of folks that follow Donald Trump on the extreme that basically says, okay, I got a wink and a nod, that folks that seem undocumented can be targets for racial harassment. And we saw that extensively, sadly, when Donald Trump was at the White House. With folks remember the El Paso massacre, it basically took a tweet from the then president to encourage someone to jump in their car and drive 10 hours and kill 23 innocent Americans who happened to be of Mexican descent. But I do think that the opportunity on the Harris side is to divorce what's happening at the border and address the individuals that have been here for 10, 20 years, that have been paying their taxes, that still don't have proper documentation because the system is fundamentally broken. All our polling shows is that when you focus specifically on that domestic policy issue, not only does it mobilize and encourage voters in the Latino community to vote, but it's also an essential issue among white, independent, moderate voters. And sometimes people ask me, why is that? I said, well, that independent, moderate white voter might have a business where this undocumented person has been working with them side by side for, decades, or they could be a spouse. And so it's really recognizing that we have to have a real conversation after the election around what it means to be American and what it means to have immigrants among us, because it is America's secret sauce. It is the reason why we have a competitive advantage across the world. And, Kaylee, you don't have to take my word for it. When you look at election interference that's coming from foreign folks, it is around the issue of immigrants and race, something that was widely underreported. What happened in Springfield, Ohio, where you saw bomb threats that were targeting local high schools and local schools, a good quarter of them came from abroad. Those phone calls were coming from foreign interference. And it begs the question, why do folks want to disrupt one of the basic economic engines of our country, that is the contributions of immigrants to our economy every single day? And so I would encourage us to have that conversation post-election, but I also think that it's vital for our economy to understand the contributions that these groups make every single day to our country.
Maria Teresa, we have just about a minute left here, but if there's going to be real immigration reform, I think we all know a lot of that has to come from Congress. Are you seeing the same kind of patterns in the down ballot races as you're seeing in the presidential race among Latino voters right now?
So it's really interesting. Even in April, if you look at our stuff in April, Democrats were overwhelmingly winning in the down ballots. And so it says that the Latino community really does espouse a lot of the Democratic platforms, but they were very soft on the top of the ticket candidate. And so this is going to be very much neck to neck. I am curious to see what happens in the Senate, because that is absolutely one that no one knows. You have Tester really having a hard time, I think, putting it over the top. But is there going to be wiggle room where Colin Allred takes it away in Texas? And if he does, it's going to be because of the Latino vote, and it's going to be because of the youth vote in Texas.